That takes us over to the next heavyweight program, which is Christian versus Rhino, coming off the back of Christian screwing Sting. That may not make sense, but we'll talk about it.
Well, Rhino and Sting are just best buds.
They're best of friends. They've been established as... I guess Rhino was on the Lethal Lockdown team, so there's not no connection.
I like the... this is kind of like going into the promo that we're about to talk about, but it's like, Rhino's like, Christian, I just don't believe that you do this. And then it's like, have you watched a single second of Christian's career? All he does is betray the people closest to him.
It's his favorite thing to do.
It's like if there's one guy in pro wrestling that you talk about betraying your friends, it's Christian's like number one.
He does it over and over again.
And it works out every time for him?
Yeah. So they do recap the Christian turn. Then they show a segment from after Hard Justice that didn't air in the pay-per-view where Rhino confronted Christian after the match. Christian's like, trust me, I did it for you, I did it for everybody, you just gotta believe me.
And they're like, why, Christian, why?
Yeah, Christian's not in the building on week 1, but we do have a feature from him. He says that people are saying they could see it from a mile away, like it was a master plan.
Which, again, we could. You just, even if you weren't planning on it, you did everything to make you feel like you were planning on it.
He says it was actually a game time decision. He neutralized Steiner, he hit Jarrett with a chair, he gave a belt to Sting, and Sting still couldn't get the job done. What did Sting want him to do? Put the face paint on and wrestle the match for him himself? And then he quips, at least then he would have won.
Christian's such a good, heel.
The transformation in the man overnight with the heel turn is really night and day. Again, not that the babyface run was terrible, but this man is so much more comfortable as just a smarmy heel.
Yeah.
He says he talks about how he was jealous because he came in as the big acquisition, and then right after he came in, Sting showed up to take his spotlight. Sting had so many chances and couldn't get the job done. Then pivots to talk about Rhino, who is his brother, and when he sits down and talks to Rhino, Rhino will understand. Sting's like, I couldn't be here this week because I wanted to let cooler heads prevail, but I'll be there live in the Impact Zone next week. And he also points out he never got his rematch against Jarrett. He wasn't even pinned in King of the Mountain. So he's been screwed, and he's taken it's a new era of TNA. It's the Christian Cage era. So following week, we get another recap of the turn, and then Christian comes out. He's sitting on a chair in the middle of the ring in a spotlight. Christian is here, like he promised, unlike that liar Sting, who said he'd win the NWA title and fails. Talks about how Sting is a man of God, but the only God is Christian Cage. And Don is like, what a sacrilegious statement. Big opposer of blasphemy.
His name is Christian, to be fair.
Yeah, he is a man of faith.
Have I ever told you the story about how I tried to relate to one of my Christian teachers growing up with Christian the wrestler?
No.
Oh, God. Yeah, I was just like, hey, I like wrestling. He's like, yeah, cool, whatever, idiot, basically. And I was like, hey, is there a called Christian? And he's like, is that part of his thing? And I was like, no, not really.
He had some crosses for a while in his gear. That's about it.
Yeah, he had operatic singing. And I felt very embarrassed immediately after saying it.
Did you say it in front of a group?
No, it's one-on-one.
Okay, that's not as bad.
I would never talk about wrestling to the group.
That's fair. Rhino confronts Christian about what he did at Hard Justice. Christian is like, I know that you and Sting, you go way back. When you broke your neck and Sting was at the hospital when you got out of surgery, I was like, no wait, that was me. And I know I called you every week when you were recovering like a cripple, he says to him. When Rhino was overseas, his wife called and threatened to take his child and leave him. Christian was the one that was there for him. But if Sting's relationship is that important to him, fine.
I kind of think Christian's right.
He's a little bit right.
And also, I know it's wrestling, history, just gets forgotten very quickly. But Rhino, you are the guy that would whose whole thing was pile driving women.
Yeah.
Where is your, you don't get to be the morality police for Christian.
No. And what Christian did wasn't even that bad. He just screwed a guy.
Yeah, in pro wrestling, that's what you do every third person.
You just hit him with one guitar.
Exactly. It's perfectly acceptable.
Christian is like, fine. You want to deal with it? Deal with it. Here's a chair. Do it. Hit me. You want to flush 10 years of friendship down the drain? You do it. Fine. It's like, are you really that mad about Sting? Or are you mad that I have a bigger house and a better car and I became a bigger star?
I was like, that kind of... I really like this whole segment. Like, for them having to make, like, them having to justify that, or, like, continue the story on without Sting, to immediately pivot to, like, something super personal was, like, a good way of making you forget that they're, like, not doing the Sting thing.
Yeah, because, like, well, if you sat down and thought about it, it's a good point that, like, it doesn't make sense that the follow-up to Christian screwing Sting is not Christian versus Sting. But if you actually watch the show, it doesn't really feel that way. You do kind of get drawn into this story because, as you said, it's a personal thing. It's a proper beef.
Yeah.
Rhino throws the chair down and says, Christian's like, well, it looks like I'm the only one with a set of balls. But then Rhino responds that he doesn't need a chair to kick Christian's ass.
I was going to say he doesn't need balls.
Listen, some people don't, and that's fine.
A lot of people don't.
Rhino goes to town on Christian. Rhino goes for a gore, but Christian throws the chair into his face. Rhino is bleeding as Christian hits him with the chair again. Christian goes to leave, but gets another chair and comes back, and then kills Rhino with a one-man concerto as Rhino's bleeding all over the place. Good angle. Good Christian promo. Rhino, like, they justified the pivot to Rhino about as well as you could, and, like, good blade job. Good heat.
It is good heat.
The following week, we have a recap of the attack last week, and JB asks Christian about his motives. He's like, I'm in the business of teaching lessons. First Sting, and now Rhino. Ron Killings walks up, talks about how he took opportunity and didn't complain about it, even though his first TNA character was literally, he complained his way into getting a world title shot and then won.
Like, all the time. Like, it was his main thing.
He was literally accusing everybody of being racist.
Like, he was right, but, like, it was still, like, he was right, but, like, you still were complaining. Justifiable complaints.
So yeah, Ron should be on Christian's side. But yeah, he's like, I wasn't moaning about getting opportunities. Says Christian isn't man enough to face him. Christian calls him a poser. Ron says imitate. He doesn't imitate. He demonstrates. And then they brawl a little, and they will wrestle next week or the later night. Next week.
It does, like, scream as if they're like, let's just give Ron little things. We have nothing else for him, but let's just give him little bibs and bobs.
We need to find ways to make him not deeply unhappy.
Yeah.
September 7th Impact. Christian Cage defeats Ron Killings.
He sure does.
Similar enough to the Joe match, in which, like, nothing special, but it's like a decent, solid, heavyweight main event style match. Truth hits a slingshot crossbody to send us out to break. They plugged the TNA Knockouts DVD, and Don says the words, "It's worth the buy if you know what I mean." I don't want to know what you mean, Don.
And the thing is, I don't know what you mean.
Christian hits a spear for a near fall. Ref gets bumped, allowing Truth to get, like, a weird visual pin where he briefly got off the pin as Andrew Thomas staggered around. But low blow on Prettier for the win. Christian grabs some chairs for a concerto, but then Rhino returns, makes the save. Rhino says Christian ran out of the ring like a little girl. Christian ended 10 years of friendship the other week and challenges Christian to a match at No Surrender, which Jim Cornette then makes official later in the show.
Perfect.
September 14th, we get a feature on the history between Rhino and Christian with some footage of them on the indies and messing around on the road together, which is, I'm so glad they do have that, because it's one of those things that just adds the layer of reality to it, that these two were in fact friends. You see all this old, like, VHS camcorder footage of them on the road together when they were younger. It just adds that extra layer.
It adds depth.
It's the kind of great thing where it's like, it's the right kind of reality being injected into wrestling. You don't have to fake it. You are like, these two were friends, and now it is a betrayal. Christian was the first person other than Rhino to hold it, and his wife to hold Rhino's daughter. Christian wants to help Rhino grow through tough love, because they have, like, talking head spots in this as well. The next week, go home show, Ronti and Mino.
Ronti and Mino.
Monty and Rhino start the show with promos about a Falls Count Anywhere match they're having later tonight. Christian approaches Monty and says they have to talk some serious business.
It's raining.
Men?
Hallelujah. It's not raining. I imagined the rain sound.
Are you going crazy?
I don't know what's happening.
This is like the appendix episode.
This might be worse.
There is, like, a canonical through line of "you've got to be kidding me" content of Liam is slowly dying as it happens.
Yeah.
Later in that show, Monty Brown versus Rhino in a Falls Count Anywhere match goes to a no contest.
Okay.
They show a bunch of highlights of the Falls Count Anywhere match from Hard Justice here. Monty sidesteps a gore as Rhino puts himself through a table. Rhino sets up a gore later in the match, but Christian runs out. The bell just starts ringing as the Falls Count Anywhere match is thrown out because one of the competitors brawls to the back.
The falls counted too hard.
And as they cut away, that's it for the alpha male Monty Brown.
That's insane.
This is the last time we ever see Monty in TNA.
I guess it makes sense that, like, Rhino and Monty are the final thing together. Because they kind of been linked.
Yeah, like the pounce and the gore, that kind of thing. And they've been feuding for most of the summer.
So, like, you know, it's fitting.
Yeah, I guess because there was those notes that, like, they were a little more optimistic about keeping him at one point this month.
Yeah.
They may not have felt the need to, like, completely write him out. And then he just didn't resign and he was gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, these guys brawl to the back. Christian concertos Rhino against the wall backstage. And we just never see or hear from Monty Brown again.
Garrett.
Yeah, Liam?
Do you remember when Monty Brown was on NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 3?
Yeah, like people forget. Obviously, the listeners of our show might not. But people forget Monty was there for a brief period in 2002 as a very green wrestler who did, even like relative to his experience level in 2004, 2005, was not ready for that spot.
Do you remember when he wrestled Elix Skipper, Ron Killings, and Sonny Siaki? Just people of the era.
He had like that, was it Falls Count Anywhere or Stip match against Skipper, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. They teamed once and then they feuded.
Mm.
Do you remember when Monty Brown wasn't anywhere in 2003?
Yeah, he disappeared for about a year and a half there.
Do you remember Monty Brown and the Sabu?
Yeah, do you remember when he returned? Do you remember what the return angle was?
I don't.
It was at the end of an ICP match.
Oh, shit.
Where there's like the dark, I think it was the Dark Carnival match. And then Monty came out and pounced somebody.
And then he wrestled Sabu a bunch.
Yeah, it was funny because I did the every Monty Brown pounce video.
Yeah.
So it was funny to see the people in that who got pounced a lot. And like on that list were like Sabu, Christian, Sonny Siaki ate a fuckload of pounces.
Yeah, he wrestled him a lot, that's why.
Yeah, Raven took a bunch as well.
Do you remember Victory Road 2004?
The first Monsters Ball.
With Abyss and Raven.
That match rocks. My defining memory of that match is Dixie Carter in the crowd going crazy at the Abyss thumbtack bump.
Garrett.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember Monty Brown versus Kevin Nash versus DDP?
Yeah, that was
leading, of course, to Monty Brown winning the NWA World Championship.
Yeah, everyone loves it when he did the babyface turn and everyone was super into him, and then he beat the big stars like Nash and DDP, and then all of a sudden he won the NWA title, right? Liam, he won it. He won the belt.
He did not do that.
Damn.
I think more importantly, do you remember Monty Brown versus Triton?
Triton? Triton did in fact return to his home planet.
When we needed him most, he was not there.
And then later in that show, they did the fucking heel turn with Monty, where he realigned himself with Jarrett.
And just a bunch of shit.
Yeah, it really is after that just a bunch of shit, isn't it?
It's like, you know, he's in a King of the Mountain. He has some tag stuff.
Teams with Kip James an irrational number of times.
And then he does like, he's in like, just matches. He just is in matches. Monty and Jeff, that was like a fun match.
Hardy?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was. Jeff was kind of crazy.
Then he wrestled Christian. And then we get to this year, which is really shows how well it went for him after that title challenge.
Yeah, the rest of 2005 was rough. And then it looked like they might be like, you know, he was in the tag against Sting and Christian.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, maybe Monty. And then he gets the Challenger of the Month spot against Christian.
And then he wasn't on Against All Odds.
Yeah. It's kind of done after the Challenger of the Month against Christian, isn't it?
Yeah, he wasn't on Lockdown. He wasn't on Sacrifice.
Wasn't on Slam. He lost the King of the Mountain qualifier.
And then, like, in between like those two pay-per-views too, he wasn't on TV.
I think he was getting surgery at one point in there. I think it wasn't. He was getting his knee scoped at one point after the loss.
And then, do you remember like the 7 Monty Brown rehabilitation attempts that were just him beating guys again on TV
to build him up to lose to Rhino?
And it's like it's luster.
Yeah.
And then he kind of went out with a bang with the 3-way with Rhino and Joe,
which was probably his best match.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Because those squashes were really the sign that it was like, it was all over.
They went back to the well again.
like if you go back and watch the squashes at the start of the Spike TV era, like those squashes in October 2005, they're awesome. They have all like the Monty Brown energy to them. And then you watch the ones in the middle of 2006, which is only like 8 months later, and you're like, oh, it's all gone. It's just all gone. And I think like my big headline takeaway from like watching now Monty Brown's TNA career start to finish for this podcast is he just should have been a babyface. Like that's the be all and end all. Like when he turned a babyface and he was opposing Jarrett, and when he had that awesome squash against Team Canada, like this dude was super charismatic. He had a finish that people would pop for. He should have been a babyface. He should have tried to Bill Goldberg him, but they didn't. They kept him as a heel. Even when he caught on as a babyface, they turned him heel. Then they did nothing with him. And I legitimately think the reason he stayed a heel for as much as he did is Jeff Jarrett saw Monty Brown babyface as a threat to his top spot.
Definitely, like, in that time period, for sure.
Like, that is the only explanation for it. Like, he saw the crowd were behind him, the crowd were hot, and that's a threat to his position. So how do you negate that threat? You turn him heel, and as a character, make him a subservient lackey to you.
I was gonna say, exactly. You do that. You make the whole point of it that he is, like, lesser than you, because he is in your group.
And that's a shame. That's a bummer. Because...
yeah.
Monty Brown was a man who was on television for 2 years. Fair enough, he had the ECW run after that, but no one really remembers that or cares about it. Like, this is a guy who was on television for 2 years, from like March of 2004 until September of 2006. And that is a run that still stands in people's minds all this time later.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing that really makes them a standout. Like, there's a lot of people who have had short runs through their career that, like, in the moment, people are like, maybe they should have been pushed more, but people just forget about. But people still, to this day, are like, fuck, Monty Brown should have been a bigger deal.
It is one of the biggest cases of booking malpractice that we've seen from this company so far.
And it is the thing that drives me crazy. Like, we've covered all this, but, like, the idea that, like, there was nobody that could beat Jarrett. There's, like, that's the talking point.
Yeah, like, yeah, he had to be the world champ. There was no one on his level.
And then you watch Monty at his peak, like, pouncing people out of their boots and getting awesome reactions and cutting awesome promos and being awesome and looking like $1 million and having, like, mainstream crossover potential as a former NFL player who competed in the Super Bowl. Like, that ticks all the fucking boxes. Weirdly, the one it doesn't tick is work rate, which is the one they always dismiss if somebody does have it, which is so annoying.
And then they use that as, like, their justification over and over and over again.
But yeah, what could have been, what should have been, sadly wasn't. And the deflating thing, watching it back, you kind of touched on it, like it's all over element of it, as you got into 2006, and you were just like, it's done. It's done for the alpha male.
It is.
But to tie this back to Rhino and Christian Concerto's Rhino against the wall at the end of this segment. JB catches up with Christian as Christian is leaving the building. He's like, there's 1,000 people I'd like to hit with a chair like this, but Rhino needs some tough love. And then he's like, Rhino's not on my level, and then tells Queer Eye to get lost because JB is gay, I guess.
Yeah, classic meme.
JB being gay. No surrender! JB has Rhino. Doctors have stated that after that concerto against the wall on Impact, Rhino should not compete. But Rhino's like, fuck the doctors, I'm here, but I hate Christian, I want to kill him. JB has Christian later in the show. JB's like, there's some rumors, Christian, that Sting's on his way here, and does that affect you? And Christian's like, nope, I'm the biggest star in the company, and I'm going to be, this has never been about Rhino, it's never been about Sting, it's all about me.
I like, again, like, we're doing a little reference to Sting, but we're not going to pay that off anytime.
Ever. There is some Sting Christian stuff at the end of the year. They're like tangentially involved with each other, but there's never like the this is why I'm wrestling you is because you screwed me back then. Then we have the match, Christian Cage versus Rhino. This is one I think I was talking about in the watch along. I think it suffers from it not being a stipulation match here, and I understand like in terms of story and escalation why it's not. Like you need to do the singles to build to the stip match, but it feels like the build they've had kind of warrants them starting at a stip. So the idea of them just kind of doing a match, and they do it with decent intensity, but it just feels like there should be more like violence here based on what they've done to each other in the build up.
Yeah, but like again, I guess that's like what they're gonna run back at Bound for Glory.
Yep, they're coming back with a stip, and then they do a cage match.
Because like too. I like this match. I think it's fun. My biggest takeaway from it was like I kind of felt like Rhino winning here would have been perfect. Just because like Christian, he's so full of himself. He made the reason to turn on Sting. He like it's all about him, and then like for him to immediately reach a roadblock, and like kind of send him spiraling even further down into it, I think would have been fine. And because he's like fresh off the heel turn, I don't think it really like affects him to lose either.
Yeah.
Because it's not like he's losing to someone like lower than him, it's like someone comparable. And I think I like the story element more of like Christian being like, like tasting like that other, like just further disappointment, like, and then just having to go like crazier with it, I think would have been fine. But like, I also get like them not wanting to immediately sort of discredit it, but I just feel like it would have been fine, and the match felt like it was building to literally that.
And they might have felt hamstrung as well by, it's not a thing they ever really emphasize, but like Christian hasn't been pinned in TNA yet. So that's a thing that they might be like, maybe we want Rhino to win, but it's not the right time to pin Christian for the first time.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that like hovers for a long time. That's never like, you know, the Joe undefeated streak style, but
yeah,
I think he goes without being pinned longer than Joe. So the match, Rhino dumps Christian out to the floor with a back body drop, and Christian takes one of his wild, wacky bumps that's crazier than it ever should be. We have some crowd brawling. Christian drops a Rhino with an Impaler DDT on the ramp. I really like that Christian does all of Edge's moves.
It's good.
He does the spear, he does the Edge-O-Matic, he does the Impaler DDT.
He's been doing them for 10 years, you know?
He's been doing like the Edge-O-Matic, like that's the like grab him by the chin and drop him down move. But like the Impaler and the spear, I think, are TNA additions.
Yeah, but then like he will just keep them forever. I like that he's just like, he's my friend, I can do his moves.
Yeah, I'm in a different company. It's not mean anymore.
Oh, it's still mean.
He got a near fall on a frog splash. Rhino gets busted open. Christian ducks a short arm clothesline, and Rhino hits Andrew Thomas instead. Christian immediately gets a visual pin on an Edge-O-Matic of all things. Then goes out to get some chairs, but then Rhino gores him, but there's no ref.
How dare you bury the Edge-O-Matic?
That's not a pin move.
How dare you?
Rhino goes for a concerto, but Andrew Thomas revives long enough to pull the chair out of Rhino's hands, but then disappears long enough again for Christian to hit a low blow and Unprettier for the win, as the trainer attends to Rhino, and Christian ekes out his victory.
I'm looking forward to them coming back to this.
Yeah, or maybe end on like a DQ, but like one of those wild DQs because Rhino just keeps beating the shit out of him. He loses because he kicks too much ass.
Yeah.
But yeah, good feud. Good start to Christian's heel run. As I said, breath of fresh air compared to the babyface stuff, honestly.
It just suits him more.
He has that face. He has, not the Vince he has that face, because Vince hates his face. But he has he has that smug, shit-eating face, and it makes everything he does so much better.
Yeah.